Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vananachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Ki Jai. I have to say Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki Jai. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Bist du bereit mit der Übersetzung oder? You translate?
Yes.
Auf Englisch, ja. Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj ki Jai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. So, Hare Krishna. So we will be today entering the wonderful world of the Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And the reason why it's a wonderful world, because this is a world of a spiritual dedication to Krishna. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, while reading, I was reading yesterday and today a little bit about him from this wonderful book written by Srila Bhakti Swami Maharaj, which is a very extensive description of all the Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's pastimes and his writings. And Bhakti Swami was visiting all the remaining disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and asked them personally questions about Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. So this is the last, he caught the last train, you can say, to actually find out everything about this wonderful, amazing personality. So we are very fortunate to have this document, you can say, about this wonderful personality of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. When I was reading of what about him so far, I came up to the point when he was about to preach, go out and preach. My impression of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati is that he was a troublemaker. How do you translate it in Russian? How do you translate in Russian troublemaker? Problem maker. He's a very problematic personality. In English, there's the word called instigator. Instigator means he just goes and provoke things, which is and he was so powerful that he went against the whole world. This is called acharya. He did not, of course, wander around and create problems for himself. He created problems for Krishna. He wanted to establish that Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and to establish the proper worship of Krishna according to the Shastra, particularly Chaitanya Charitamrita. So I have one article here. The Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati speaks about how to speak the truth. His message was to speak the truth. He said, do not try to discover the nature of truth by exercise of your imagination. Means do not try to speculate the truth. Do not try to find the truth by looking about in this world, is it truth or not truth? And he said, do not manufacture truth to satisfy your own personal deficiencies. And he said, do not accept a truth which is supported by majority of people like yourself. Meaning, don't listen to what other people say, this is true, or you accept this is truth. And do not say this is not true just because everybody else says it's not true. Meaning that sometimes when people say the Hare Krishnas, they're terrible, and you said actually true, they are terrible. This is not true. We know, especially in the beginning of the movement, there was lots of criticism in ISKCON, in the West. There was lots of criticism, particularly in the former Soviet Union area. This was like, wow, this is, we've got to put to jail everybody. This is wrong. And people would say, yeah, this is very wrong because the government says it's wrong, so it must be wrong. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said, no, you should not accept this. Only because everybody else says it's wrong. Then he gives the quote that one Manushyanam Sahasreshu Kashina what is that? Kashina Siddhya Panditini is here. That out of thousands of people, only one may inquire about the truth. And out of those thousands who inquired about the truth, one may actually find it and accept it. So Bhaktisiddhanta, of course, he says that one should follow the Shastra. This is actually the real truth. Truth comes from Krishna himself, and he said the truth can reveal itself in nature only by the truth reveal itself to us. Otherwise, it's not possible. Meaning that the Shastras will reveal the truth. And that's the truth. Otherwise, we will be, without the guidance, we will not be able to find the truth. Anyways, so his whole life was basically pursuance of the truth. And truth is, Krishna is Swayam Bhagavan, Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we are all his servants. And we have to serve him. And this is the dharma of every living entity. So this whole life was for this, he used his whole life for this goal. Interesting, he called this as a aggressive grace. Meaning, we are graceful, but praise a little bit aggressively.
He called himself.
No, he said that our approach is an aggressive grace. We aggressively push the grace into the world. And he said that the duty of a sadhu is to speak strongly. Because he said the only duty of a sadhu is to cut away the wicked propensities of every individual. So it's like a cutting away. And Srila Prabhupada says also that my Guru Maharaj used the chopping technique. Chopping means you take the hatchet and you chop. Nowadays, nobody speaks like this. In ISKCON, nobody speaks like this. And Prabhupada also, he used sometimes chopping techniques. He was very heavy. Sometimes when you read a discussion of Prabhupada with the TV reporter, Prabhupada would say, "You are nonsense." Everybody's like, "Oh, but how do you say this?" And he said, "Because this is nonsense." We don't speak like this somehow or other for some reasons, because maybe we are not convinced enough, or maybe we think that these people, we will burn the people out, or whatever reasons we have. But this is how Bhaktisiddhanta spoke. But we know in India you can speak like this. I've heard many, many, many years ago, when I was in India, traveling, that one sannyasi, when he would have a house program, ISKCON sannyasi, when he would have a house program in Indian house, first thing they enter the door, he would just go straight to the fridge. And he would open the fridge, and if there's a meat, he would throw all the meat in the garbage. And he says, "Now I can speak in your house." This is a sadhu. In the West, this will not work so much, But in India, it worked. Anyways, so Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said, duty is to cut away these wicked propensities. And he said, because the worldly people, he said, materialistic people, they possess two natures. One is to say, yes, yes, you are right, but inside they maintain this materialistic attitude. Which he calls duplicity. And he said, this duplicity they mark as liberalism, or love for harmony. We should be harmonious to everybody. We should not be, offending anybody. We should be, nice to everybody. And he says, the reason is because they themselves maintain these materialistic attachments. This is the reason. And he said, they want to advertise duplicity as a mark of liberalism. As a liberalism. So Bhaktisiddhanta said, those who are unwilling to show any duplicity, meaning the sadhus who don't have any duplicity, this is say who they are, who desire to be frank and straightforward, he says, such sincere individuals, these people, they call them sectarian or orthodox. These duplicitous people, they call them sectarian orthodox. Nowadays we have, they call them right-wing devotees. This is the right-wing devotees, the liberal devotees. We divided somehow into, we use the terminology from the politics of the West. These are the right-wingers. Such and such Swami is a right-wing devotee. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said, this is the function of the soul, to be straightforward and honest. And he said, we will cultivate the association only with those who are straightforward. And we will avoid the company of others. It's pretty heavy. But this is what Bhaktisiddhanta, who he was, you can say. So this is just, I just wanted to illustrate, this is the mood of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. This is how he taught, this is how he, behaved, how he acted. The beginning of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, we know the famous story. He was born in Puri, in Jagannath Puri. He's a Brijbasi actually, born in the Holy Dham. His father was the most amazing Acharya, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Imagine your father and son, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta. This is like, born in Puri. There's no, like a triple stamp, pure devotee. So Bimala Prasad, that was his name, but he was very, very young. And, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's house was on this main road where the Jagannath Rath Yatra goes. And he says that Rath Yatra finishes in a couple of hours from the temple of Jagannath to the Gundicha temple. And at that time, when, Bhaktisiddhanta was very young, he was baby, and they took him out, his mother took him to, of course, to see Jagannath. or so actually to Jagannath see him. And then the car stopped at that place, and car did not want to move for 3 days. 3 days car was not moving. They couldn't move the car for 3 days. And so the mother thought, now is the chance, so bring the child up there to the feet of Jagannath. So the baby, they said he was laying like this, and baby tried to, with his little baby hand, tried to touch the foot of Jagannath, And he said at that moment the garland fell off the Jagannath and fell on Bhaktisiddhanta. Not on him, but surrounded Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. So everybody thought, wow, this is a special mercy of Jagannath on Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. And the first grain what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati ate was Jagannath Mahaprasad. So purity from the very beginning. So very, very special person. Because also Bhaktivinoda Thakur said he realized that he would not be able to preach all over the world. He wrote the books, he rediscovered Chaitanya Charitamrita, he wrote many wonderful books describing the nectar of devotion, which was almost forgotten in Bengal and Orissa, which was actually land of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he revived this. And what Bhaktivinoda Thakur also did, he introduced this Gaudiya Vaishnavism to the intellectual circles of Bengal at that time. And since Bhaktivinoda Thakur was very educated, he also wrote in English. And he even sent a book on Lord Chaitanya, he sent it to the West, to this famous book, Lord Chaitanya and his precepts, he sent it to the McGill University in Canada. Which ISKCON devotees later on, when they went, they found this book actually. I've heard, unfortunately, the devotees took the book from the library, and then somehow this book is somewhere lost, somewhere. Devotees. ISKCON devotees, later on in the 70s, they went to the library, they took the book from the library, because it's a Bhaktivinoda book, and somehow his book is somewhere, we don't know where. But the point is that Bhaktivinoda wanted to preach, and he was praying for this when the Russians and Prussians and English and French would come out and chant, Jai Sacinandana Gaura Hari. And he said they will learn how to play mridangas. And they will come to Mayapur. Interesting enough, Mayapur at that time was just a jungle, just nothing, just bushes, nothing. Mosquitoes, there was nothing in Mayapur at that time. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he found a place, somehow he had a vision that this was the place of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's birth. And he wanted to build a temple there. So he had some kind of a structure, but there was almost nothing. I will tell you a little later why is this important. Anyway, so that was the point. The Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati from the very beginning was brought up in this purity. Oh, of course, and I didn't say the punch line. The Bhaktivinoda Thakur realized that he cannot preach himself. He was married and older already and around the world. So he was praying to the ray of Vishnu. And so Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was born, ray of Vishnu. So, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, from the very young age, he was making trouble. When he was 5, 6 years old, something, or 7. Actually, when he was 7 years old, he memorized the whole Bhagavad Gita by heart. 700 verses, whatever, 720 verses. He memorized all the Bhagavad Gita, and he could not just memorize it; he could give a lecture on each verse. Let's say he would just read constantly. He was never playing like children, playing in the sand. He would just constantly read from the very young age. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was receiving many guests, some sadhus at times. And you know how in India, if you travel to India, if you come as a sadhu, the whole family comes and offer obeisance, the children offer obeisance to you. And so then this one Babaji, he noticed, every time I come, this boy, Bimal Prasad, does not offer obeisance to me. So he asked, why? Bhaktivinoda said, Bhaktisiddhanta said, he does not offer obeisance to Sahajiyas. As a child. No to Sahajiyas. And then when he was 11, 10, 11, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he bought a printing press. And he was printing, and he was teaching Bhaktisiddhanta how to edit books, how to print books. Bhaktisiddhanta learned everything about the printing press, even printing press itself. How does it work? He could fix it. The printing press was the main thing for Bhaktivinoda Thakur's propagation of his books. So Bhaktisiddhanta, already young, was very much helping him in this. He would edit Bhaktivinoda's books, and he would, bind it, print it, everything. So when he was 12 years old only, he started to study Upanishads. 12 years old already, when it's in Sanskrit. Very serious, very as we say, Paka devotee from the very beginning. So then once they had a conversation in one Sanskrit scholar who was also teaching grammar to him. So then Bhaktivinoda Thakur asked him, what do you think about God? Who is God according to your opinion? And this person said, I have actually no experience of God, of his real self. I don't even know if he exists, this person says. But if I say something about him, that will mean that I will speak something which I don't know. For this reason, I don't like to discuss about Bhagavan. But he wants to teach only moral instructions, for people, so that they can understand and live by them. Like moral things, moral stories and stuff. And when he said this, Bhaktisiddhanta, young Bhaktisiddhanta, 12 years old, he said, why then did you write in your book, Bodhaya, Ishvara, Nirakara, Chaitanya? He knows even the Sanskrit, what he wrote in his book. He says, the Supreme Lord is formless. And the man was like, And he says, did you actually write this? Did you actually write this because you saw him? Or only because this is the stereotype doctrine? At that time, the whole India was Mayavadi, basically. Because by the influence of Shankaracharya, the whole India became Mayavadi. There was a few groups like Madhvas and Ramanujas, but they were in South India. But the rest of India was pure Shankaracharya's teaching, and varieties, a little bit here, a little bit there. But basically everybody was Mayavadi. So Bhaktisiddhanta, even as a young, he said, why are you teaching? Why do you write in your book? If you don't know God, why you say he's from us? Imagine some child tells you this. Sorry. So he was not, how do you say, beating around the bush, as we say. He would say, okay, Grace, let's be. Yes, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he would, he of course became a Vaishnava, and he decided to to observe Chaturmasya, because at that time amongst the Vaishnavas, they said that this is a karma kanda activity, this is for the people to go to heavenly planets, for the grihastas, if they do Chaturmasya, so therefore we don't need to follow this Chaturmasya. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur saw Jagannadas Babaji, who actually very, very strictly observed Chaturmasya. I heard this before, that he would be so heavily, doing austerities during this Chaturmasya, followed very strictly. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati decided, I want to follow Chaturmasya properly. And the reason, of course, to obtain mercy of Krishna. So, this is how he followed Chaturmasya. 4 months in a year.
Which season is this?
This is end of June, so say July, August, September, October, something like this. After when the rainy season starts.
So Kartik is more.
Kartik is the last month of Chaturmasya. But the end of the Kartik, it's the end of the Chaturmasya. So, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati followed Chaturmasya as follows. It is described actually in the Shastras. One should not cut nails, one should not cut hair, one should be apparently, householders should sleep on the ground, and they should not leave the house. There's, various instructions. But this is what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati did. He ate only once a day. The food he cooks, and rice mostly. No salt, no spices. A little ghee. And when he would cook, he would put it on the ground, throw it on the ground. No plates. And he would put his hands behind his back. And he would bend like a cow. This is called gograsa. And he would just bend like this. And whatever in one bite he gets from the rice, that's the food for the day. For the 4 months. Haribol. Lalit Prabhu is interested. So, okay, I'll write it down. Write it down immediately. Of course, he also did not cut his nails, he didn't shave. And then he slept on the ground outside. He had a little hut, and he would sleep on the ground with no pillow, with no anything, just like this. And the rest he would just chant. So no mat, no isomate, nothing, just on the ground, bare ground. Write it down. Then he would, because he was doing this 4 months, he would become sick. And Bhaktivinoda said, you should go to a doctor. And he said, no, doctor is Maya. He didn't want to go to the doctor. And the Bhaktivinoda Thakur he was a householder, and he said, this is not good, he didn't listen at all. But of course, when Bhaktivinoda was insisting, he said, okay, he would not do so rigorous, But this is how he started. So, anyways, just a little of a personality of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, as nowadays we call it, right-wing devotee or religious fanatic. These religious fanatics, or in Judaism they call it Hasidic Jews. These are the Hasidic Jews. They are, these people who have these hairs and wear these black hats. They're like serious, and they're like, oh, these are Hasidic Jews. And this was Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, was very strict in his practice. Another very interesting point of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati is that he would realize that I will have to preach the message of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the world. So he didn't just say, okay, I'm preaching. He thought, let me see how does the world works, first of all, and take from others who are preaching so that I can preach also. So he would go to Puri because he was living in Puri at that time with Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He would go to the Govardhan Mat. This Govardhan Mat is the headquarters of Shankaracharya school, of the Mayavadi school. And he would go there every day and he would study the Shastras. And these sannyasis, they thought, wow, he's becoming one of us. So they helped him, they showed him all the Shastras. He had unlimited access to the library, he could read any Shastras, they explained to him everything. And all the Vaishnavas who were living in Puri, they thought, Bhaktisiddhanta, Bimala Prasad is becoming Shankara. Because he wanted to study what is their philosophy so he can defeat their philosophy. They said that he was so intelligent that whatever he would read, he would remember. They said even many years later, 50 years, is described, 50 years, he would remember what was he reading 50 years ago. There's such a sharp memory. So he would remember all this philosophy so he can learn how to defeat. Then he learned about Mayavadis. So then he thought, let me see what the Vaishnavas are preaching. Then he took a friend of his, I forgot his name, Vidya Nagar, whatever his friend was. So two of them, they went through whole South India. They visited Madhva, they visited Udupi, they visited Ramanujan, they visited again Sringeri Mat, the Mayavadis. They visited Simhachalam, Tirupati, all these places, whole South India. And everywhere he would go, he would ask, how do you do this? How do you do this? How do you do this? He wanted to learn. And particularly what was interesting to him was a sannyas, Tridanda sannyas, somehow. Because in Vaishnava tradition, there is no such a thing as sannyas in reality. If you read Chaitanya Charitamrita, Sanatana Goswami says that Vaishnavas do not wear red cloth, actually. Orange cloth. We don't wear, Vaishnavas are wearing white. And even now, if you go to, the Radhakund or Navadvip, the Babajis, when you wear saffron, they're like, this is a Mayavadi color. Vaishnavas wear only white. Bhaktivinoda Thakur also is describing the Vaishnavas are wearing pure white cloth. This is the Vaishnava dress. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati thought, for the preaching sake, we will introduce sannyas. Imagine the brain, just imagine, nowadays we have everything, we have temples, but then there was nothing. So he was thinking, how can I introduce this to the world? So he said, how about sannyas? People respect sannyas, because people do respect sannyas in India. Nowadays, if you're sannyasi, you take sannyas anywhere you go in India, people, Maharaj, they give you money. Even here in the West, If you're grihasta, tough luck. Out there grihastas, they don't need any donation. They're grihastas. But sannyasi, So sannyasi comes, gives lecture, and everybody's wonderful. So he thought we should take sannyas, but he didn't want to take Mayavadi sannyas from Sringeri Mat, was Lord Chaitanya did. He wanted to take Vaishnava sannyas. So he was inquiring, how do one become Tridandi sannyas? Because Mayavadi sannyas is Ekadanda. Ekadanda means one truth. There's all one. We are merging into everything and everything is one. But Tridandi sannyas is different. Tridandi sannyas means 3 sticks, as if you have seen. Shishi Vijay Gauranga Dalnitai Ki Jai. In Mayapur, I saw a couple of times where they're making Gurukula, they're making 3 sannyas danda. They take 3 sticks and they tie these 3 sticks together. And 3 sticks symbolize karmana manasa vacha. Activities, mind or thinking, and vacha and speech. Meaning with these 3, we serve Krishna. And also on the our sannyas danda, we have a little like this. It's a danda and there's a little thing, if you see on sannyasis, they have a little like a half moon. And they ask Prabhupada, what does that mean? And Prabhupada says, this is depicting jiva. So with the soul, meaning body, mind, words of the body, but also with the soul. Karma, manasa, vacha, and jiva. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said, okay, that sounds good. And we know the famously Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati thought he would take from his guru, although his guru passed away, so he put a picture of Gokishore Das Babaji, and he took sannyas from the picture. So this is a process not to be imitated. I've heard one devotee has imitated it, but this is not authorized in ISKCON. One devotee in India, he took sannyas like this, but this is not approved at the moment. Maybe, when the war starts and everybody dies and one person stays, and then he will take sannyas from the picture, but but right now not. Interesting enough, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he would visit every place in South India, and then he even went to Meenakshi temple. Meenakshi is a Durga temple with tilak and everything. And South India, we know, North India, Bengal, particularly North India, is not so, as we call it, Puranic Brahmanism, not so uptight with the rules and regulations, Brahmins, smarta rules and regulations. But South India very much into rules and regulations. So the Vaishnavas from the Ramanuja Sampradaya or Madhva would never enter the Durga temple, So the priest saw the Bhaktisiddhanta was a tilak, Vaishnava tilak, he enters offer obeisance to Meenakshi Devi. So they ask him, how, why? And he said, I offer my obeisance to Meenakshi Devi as, I consider her as, he said, I enter the temple of demigods to offer respect to them as prominent Vaishnavas, not as independent gods. Because even in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, those who worship demigods, they are less intelligent. They will, they pray for some materialistic things. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, again, and we also as devotees, Krishna devotees, we worship Krishna only, but we offer respects to Shiva, we offer respects to Durga Devi, we offer respects to Ganesh, because we know they are the great devotees of Krishna. So this is Bhaktisiddhanta was preaching wherever he went. He would break the norms and he would explain all these things. Interestingly enough, there was this famous discussion that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati introduced when he was in Puri, that Vaishnava is higher than the Brahmana. So there was the big discussion and the problems, and in the end there was the big debate, public debate, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati won. There was this famous book, even printed now. We can read it. It's very, lots of verses there. And Bhaktisiddhanta proved that the Vaishnavism is higher. So everybody was glorifying Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. At that time, Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Puri, he became friend with one Charan Das Babaji. Charan Das Babaji was at that time the most prominent Vaishnava in Puri. Vaishnava of Lord Chaitanya, devotee of Lord Chaitanya. So he would come every day to see Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Bhaktisiddhanta, young Bimala Prasad. They would read from Chaitanya Charitamrita together and this and that, this and that. But slowly in time, this Charan Das Babaji, one day he invented a new mantra. Bhaja Nita Gora Radha Shyam, Japo Hare Krishna Hare Ram. So Bhaktivinoda said, this is not the best. Why are you doing this? Nowhere in Chaitanya Charitamrita is written. In Chaitanya Charitamrita there's many mantras, but Hare Krishna mantra is the prominent mantra, and Gopal mantra or whatever, but not this. Bhaja Nita Gora Radha Shyam, Japa Hare Krishna Hare. This is wrong. Bhaktivinoda did not approve. And Bhaktisiddhanta started criticizing it publicly. And he would go out on the street and he would say, this is up, did you hear this, Japa Shariram? This is Apasiddhanta, this is deviation. So everybody was like, he would go on the street and harass people, you can say. Bhaktisiddhanta would harass people, telling that this is wrong, you hear this is wrong. So this Charandas Babaji became a little bit fried with him, And some disciples, he stopped coming visiting Bhakti Vinod because Bhaktisiddhanta became a little bit unbearable. Wherever he went, he would speak against this. The problem is that when he would tell this to people, the people said, how dare you, who are you, some child, He's the Babaji, very respected. He was actually very respected, Charandas Babaji, in the community at that time in Puri. You're offending the, pure devotee. You know how it is even in our society. If you say something, against somebody, you're offending pure devotee. Like the first thing, you're offending pure devotee. Doesn't matter the argument. Like for example, once, one sannyasi sold me a very bad car. One sannyasi sold me a very bad car. And I was young and, I was leading the temple. I didn't know, we just opened a new temple. So I bought a car very cheaply. And he said, car runs very, very nicely, wonderful, car is wonderful. I thought he's a sannyasi, car is wonderful. And I bought the car and car lasted maybe 3 days, maybe 4 days. And after 4 days, it just broke down. And I said, Maharaj, car is broken down. He said, oh, you didn't take care of it nicely, this and that. And his followers says, oh, you're offending pure devotee. I said, I'm not offending pure devotee. I just asked that the car is not running well. It's dead. So I'm just saying, this is the argument that we as devotees should avoid. I hear this over and over and over and over again. If somebody does some misconduct or somebody does something wrong, I don't know, whatever. If you say something that wrong, he opened this box, you're offending pure devotee. This is a bad argument. This is a very, very bad argument. So just for you to know, bad argument. We are not offending anybody. We are saying this particular car is wrong. You sold me a wrong car. Anyways, so this is what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati did. He said, this is a wrong mantra. And then they said, oh, you're offending pure devotee. And then they become so angry with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, they conspired to kill him. In India, immediately, take this sickle, this in Bengal, where they cut the wheat. Hari Bol, come 4 or 5 people and zhuk, 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 and I've seen this recently, 2 years ago, that some Puri priests did not appreciate something the ISKCON is doing Rath Yatra, so they took the picture of one ISKCON sannyasi and they burn it and they cut it and they step on it, and this is the somehow mentality there. So watch out if you say something wrong in India. But in general, this is the mentality. So Bhaktisiddhanta he said, I don't care. So Bhaktivinoda said, maybe you should go to Mayapur for some time. Because he didn't want his son get killed. Because at that time, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati wanted to start chanting of 1 billion holy names. This is, a lots of holy names. He would chant 300,000 holy names a day. This is around 180, 190 rounds every day. So, because he wanted to chant this so that he can, purify himself enough so he can preach. He got all this knowledge. Now he wanted to purify himself to preach Krishna consciousness. And so Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, why don't you go to Mayapur and chant there? And anyways, I need somebody to manage the temple there. Because Bhaktivinoda started there, and there was just a still jungle, as I said. There was just a jungle, and there was, nobody wanted to live there. No brahmanas would want to live, worship the deity. You know how it is. When there's no money, people don't go. Nowadays, this is a very desirable place. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati went there, and he would make a little hut He would make a little hut and he would have all these books in there. And he would just sit in this hut and chant Hare Krishna how many rounds, and the rest of the time he would read these books, and he would sleep on the ground. And we eat very, very simple, mostly rice, for about 9.5 years. This was his life. And he would, meanwhile, he would manage the temple a little bit, because it's a service by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He would be a temple president also at the same time. Shatakoti Nama Yagya. So this is what he does. He had the deity of Lord Chaitanya in front of him, and he would chant in front of this deity. This deity is still in Mayapur. I've seen this deity once. It's not close to our ISKCON, but it's quite far away. If you go to Mayapur Parikrama, you can see this deity. This is like a little skinny and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with little big hair, and he stands like this, something like this. He would chant in front of this Lord Chaitanya. So, interestingly enough, he would, because this Alankara Shastra, I don't know, anybody scholar here, Alankara means decoration. And it says, according to the Alankara Shastra, the green color is representing Viraha Bhava, like a Bhava of separation. So he would do everything green. He would write in green ink. He would wear green shawl in winter, and he would use everything green, for whatever is there, green, for leaves or whatever it is. He would not wear any shirts, not sweater. He would just have a little cloth cover himself. No shoes, just barefoot. Nowadays again, when we walk barefoot, there's the streets. But that time, it was just you have to go through these bushes, and he said sometimes his feet will bleed, but he didn't care. No doctor, he wouldn't care. And of course, he would bathe in Ganga every day. This is also pretty nice. Interestingly enough, the Bhaktivinoda Thakur gave him beads actually to chant when he was a very young boy, and Bhaktisiddhanta chanted on these beads for the rest of his life. On these very beads, Bhaktivinoda gave him. Pretty cool. Interesting enough, he would even manage the temple, and then slowly he would become famous. People will hear, oh, there's some great sadhu living in Mayapur. So people will start coming to visit him. And he would also go to Navadvip from time to time. We know from Mayapur you have to take a boat to go to Navadvip. Navadvip was a town at that time. There are structures and people were living there, many thousands of whatever people. And Bhaktisiddhanta would go to Navadvip, and what would he do there? He would heavy everybody out. He would tell, surrender to Krishna. He would preach very heavily. And of course, he would preach against Sahajiyas. Sahajiyas are those who take everything cheaply. Bhaktisiddhanta was very much against it. So of course, he didn't make friends in Navadvip, but people knew him. They were thinking, oh, this is a great sadhu. And once they said his reputation became so big that even people from Puri and even Vrindavan came to see him only in Mayapur, because he became a famous sadhu. And some even became his disciples. Interestingly enough, one person came from the rich family, and he threw his clothes away, put the coat on, and dressed properly. How sometimes devotee, we go to Mayapur and we dress like sadhus. We take a little old dhoti and we put a little beard, and we also sadhus. So one person was like this, and he came to Bhaktisiddhanta and he said, I heard you are a greatly renowned person. He wanted to be with him. But then he saw that Bhaktisiddhanta is also managing the temple, managing Yoga Pit temple. And he said, this is nonsense. He's nonsense. Nothing I can learn. He said, nothing I can learn from you. Proud. Then he went to Gaur-Kishoredas Babaji and stayed with Gaur-Kishoredas Babaji. And then every time Bhaktisiddhanta would go to visit Gaur-Kishoredas, he would say, you're not allowed. You're not allowed to come. Bhaktisiddhanta would stand at the door, he would just slam the door in front of his face. Which I thought interesting, everybody in this world will experience nastiness from some other person. Even Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who has done nothing, he actually has done nothing. He accommodated this person. He accommodated him when he went to live with him. He said, yes, welcome. But, meaning that if we experience that someone is telling us, you are nonsense, this is how the world is like this. That's what it is. Even if you behave perfectly, that someone will say, he is like this. This is how it is, material world. There's this famous story of a son and a father traveling long distance on a horse. So they were sitting on a horse so they're passing by the village, and villagers said, just see these horrible people. They are sitting on a poor horse, two of them. A horse, what about a horse? So they heard it, so the father said, yeah, it's true actually, two of us on a horse is a little bit too much. Poor horse. Okay, let me stand on the ground, you sit on the horse. And they went to another village, and villager said, just see this puffed up son, has his father, he sits on a horse and has his father walking. How, this is degradation. So they heard that and they said, okay, let's change the position. I sit up, you walk. So father was sitting, and then goes to another village, and the villager said, just see this puffed up father. Although his life is already gone, he doesn't think about his son. He wants to sit, he wants to be comfortable, and let son destroy his legs. So they heard that and they said, okay, what is the last combination? Okay, how about if we all walk, and we walk with a horse? So they walked to the villager said, just say these stupid people. They have a horse and they're still walking, they're so stupid. So the point is that you can never satisfy everybody. There's no such a thing. Therefore, we try to satisfy our spiritual master and satisfy Srila Prabhupada from following his instructions. And if the whole world says you are stupid, okay, I am, thank you. Good, thank you for reminding me one more time. You can never please anybody. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati also could not please, although he has done nothing. Bhaktisiddhanta, he was invited because he became, very reputable, famous sadhu, and people started taking initiation from him. And he would, once one king invited him to speak on Vaishnavism, but he invited also other speakers. So at that time, this king did not have discretion, because he thought, these are Vaishnavas, these are Brahmanas, it's all the same, sadhus. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was sitting there, and they did not, because the others, Goswamis, Jata Goswamis, means by birth, Goswamis were Smarta Brahmanas. They knew Bhaktisiddhanta, they knew what is he always talking, and this is against them. He was very much against that people become hereditary Brahmanas. Hereditary Brahmanas means by birth, Brahmanas. You're born in Brahmana family, automatically you're Brahmana. Bhaktisiddhanta said, no, you have to qualify yourself to actually act like a Brahmana. And Prabhupada also gives example how in India, people drive rickshaws, but they have a Brahman thread. So how can Brahmana drive rickshaw? You know, nowadays, of course, we have electric rickshaws, but at that time, the rickshaw was pulling. You know, sometimes you pull. When I actually came, even 90s, when I came to Calcutta, to Mayapur, first time Calcutta, you saw the people carrying like a rickshaw with no bicycle, just carrying with the, like walking like this. Have you seen this, Prabhu? Sachidwala. Have you seen it? What was have you seen in Mayapur when people carry rickshaws? Anyways, there, and these people are Brahmanas. You know, Brahmanas don't do this. There's a menial labor, meaning by your qualifications. So Bhaktisiddhanta was also invited to speak, and the Goswami somehow managed that they never had time for him to speak. There was discussion of Krishna Katha, you know, they sit and discuss Krishna Katha in the, you know, assembly of the people. But somehow Bhaktisiddhanta never had time for them, you know, always busy. Not he, they did not have time for him in the slot, in the list. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati did not want to eat anything. And for 3 days, he had nothing except leaves of tulasi. Because, and then they gave him to speak finally. And he spoke on the verse, Brahmanda Brahmite Konya Bhagavan Jiva Guru Krishna Prasade Paya Bhakti Lata Bija and Chetan Charitamrita. The glories how to obtain proper guru in this material universe is not an easy task. One has to be very, very fortunate. So he was speaking 3 to 4 minutes, and they said, okay, your time is up. So Bhaktisiddhanta said, okay, he realized this is just, they're not going to give me any time. So he left without telling anybody. He just walked to the train station, I don't know how many kilometers. You know, fasting 3 days and walking, you know, a couple of kilometers to the train station. So when King heard that he is leaving, he immediately came and he said, oh, I'm very sorry, and this and that. And what happened, that the Brahmanas told him that he did not want to eat because he considered himself higher and he doesn't want to pollute himself by eating your food. So they made all this politics against him. So Bhaktisiddhanta explained, no, I did not want to eat because I saw that they actually misrepresenting the philosophy of Lord Chaitanya, and I did not want to eat their food, because if you eat the food from them, you got contaminated. Which is very interesting point, eating somebody's food. Even in the Krishna book, when Vidura invited Krishna for lunch, and at the same time Duryodhana invited Krishna for lunch, Krishna went to Vidura. Krishna himself did not want to eat Duryodhana's food. And Prabhupada explains the comparing to what could Duryodhana cook and what could Vidura cook. It's like Duryodhana is a king, the most palatable dishes, you know, most amazing thing. And Vidura was a simple, you can say Shudra, but still he lived in a court house. But he was so ecstatic, we know the story, so ecstatic, he was peeling bananas, wanted to give Krishna, but in his ecstasy he gave the peels to Krishna. And Krishna ate, it's very tasty. Because there was a devotion there. So eating food is a very important thing. So therefore cooking is a very important thing. You know. Cooking with the proper attitude, with the proper consciousness, with proper cleanliness. You know, and also with the understanding we are cooking for Krishna. You know. We know again from Chaitanya Charitamrita there's quite a bit about food, actually, about prasadam. Quite so many points, so many parts of Chaitanya Charitamrita describe prasadam. You know, Advaita Acharya cooking for the Lord, and you know, eating Nityananda and Advaita eating in house of Advaita Acharya, Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya. Then there's famous Raghavera Jala, the bags of Raghava Pandit, all kinds of wonderful foods are there. Describes everything. And Srila Prabhupada says even in one of the purports, devotees of ISKCON should note down these preparations and make a cookbook out of it and cook from these preparations. I saw once one cookbook, traditional Bengali cookbook. This is most amazing preparations. I don't know what, I just remember, for example, they make puris, sugar puris, and they make them crisp. And then they crush them, and they mix them with some camphor and this and this and that, and then they make a sweet ball. And this is a sweet ball, or something. There's so many different kinds of details like this, and you think like, wow, I would never think about this, But meaning the culture of food is very, very important, especially in Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written quite few songs on food, on prasadam. There's one song about shak, glorifying shak, green leafy vegetables. In ISKCON in the West, we have only one green leafy vegetable, is spinach. But in Bengal, if you go around in the backyard, there's this green leafy, so they make green leafy vegetables. And Bhaktivinoda says, whoever tastes this shak, he will achieve love of God. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has a song glorifying Kitri. Yesterday we had this wonderful Kitri. So I just remember the song of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, glorifying Kitri. Kitri. We think like, what's for breakfast? Kitri. Again Kitri. But it's actually Kitri, pleasing to the Lord, pleasing Lord Jagannath. This is one of the foods which are daily offered to Lord Jagannath, Kitri. I did. We were in Switzerland in the temple. They call it New Jagannath Puri. They have a Jagannath temple. So the appearance, 30 years or 40 years or whatever, installation of Jagannath. So I thought, let me cook some traditional Puri preparations. So I looked at the YouTube, different names, and I found recipes, and we ordered some special this and that. And I tried to make, preparations which are actually made in Jagannath Puri. And of course, lo and behold, Kitri was there. Kitri. So this is what Lord Jagannath eats. Anyways, so the culture of the, maybe I'm hungry speaking about this. The culture of food is very important. The consciousness, the purity of it, and the intention that we cook this for the Lord. So therefore we want to make our best to please the Lord. And this is what, again, coming to, I'm winding up here about Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. This is what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's intention was in his preaching, to do best for the Lord, because this is the dharma of the soul. Dharma of the soul is not to cheat. Therefore he was very much attacking the cheaters, those who are, as we call it nowadays, watering down, the philosophy of Lord Chaitanya, because this is not the dharma of the soul. How will you make progress if you do this? You will just continue staying in this material world. And his duty as an acharya was to actually wake us all up, which he did. He did. Many devotees joined him. Many intelligent people joined him. And they're preaching all over India. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur opened 64 temples, 64 mats. I mean, this is quite something, to open 64 temples. Imagine if each devotee here in the room will open 64 temples. Pretty good, So he did this, and he preached to the many intelligent people at that time. And somebody says that most intelligent students actually joined Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. You have these wonderful devotees, Sridhar Swami or Bhakti Pragyan Kesha Maharaj. There's all these super intelligent, super scholarly people, and with great devotion. So, but his, again, intention was not to provoke people, to offend people. His intention was to speak the truth. Truth was very, very important to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. And as an acharya, he accomplished it, and therefore we are sitting here now, many, many years later, and glorifying Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki jai. Prabhupada ki jai. Anything you want to add, subtract?
I have a question.
Yes.
I have this richtig verstanden.
Du gesagt Deutsch.
At the beginning, you said that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said that when somebody is liberal, he has just attachments.
Yes. He said exactly, I can tell you what he said. His English is a little bit difficult to follow, even for English people, English-speaking people. So basically he said like this. Where is the thing now? Oh, I cannot find it now. Anyways, he says, there. No. Here. So, the only duty of sadhus is to cut away all the accumulated wicked propensities of every individual. Meaning, the duty of a sadhu is to cut these anarthas, basically, wicked things. Then he said, this is alone is the causeless natural desire of all sadhus, because this is why you became sadhu yourself, because you want to cut for yourself, first of all these illusions. Like, meaning, if you become also devotees, you don't want to now cheat yourself, okay, Haribol, then you go in the corner and smoke a cigarette, and then you pretend, Why would you do this? This is Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's point. And then he said this, worldly persons, means materialistic persons, possess a double nature. Meaning, they express one kind of sentiment externally, but internally cherish a different purpose. And sometimes you see people, whoever preaches, somebody wants to join, and he said, I want to join, I'm interested. But they're not really deep, they're not really interested, But they say it, I don't know why people do this, they say it. It's very rare that somebody says, no, I'm not, Usually people say, wonderful, especially if you distribute books. If you distribute books in California, this is my favorite place, People say, oh, wonderful book, this is so great, keep up the good work, and they walk away. They glorify you, but they don't take your book, and you feel like an idiot, standing there, okay, thank you. So, thanks a lot, keep up the good work. Or they said, or especially when they say, oh, really, how much? I don't have money with me, I'm just going to the ATM machine, to take some money and I'll come back. 100, it's not 99.9, 100% they never come back. I never had anybody came back ever. These are the people. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati figuring this out, and he said in people and sadhus, even in sadhus, there's this mentality state. We came from the material world, we didn't appear from the skies. We are those karmis, we came from the material world. So then he said, internally they cherish this other sense gratification. Then he said, they want to advertise this duplicity as a mark of liberalism. This sense gratification, they said, oh, actually, we should be nice to this or nice to that. But in reality, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati says, this is in the name of love of harmony. We should not tell the people, eating meat because we should not create we should not stir the situation unnecessarily. And in our case, we hear many times, oh, but Prabhupada said they're nice. I heard once we spoke about something and said, yeah, these people are they eat meat and they for one country, particular country in South America, and said they're gangsters, they kill people. He says, yeah, but Prabhupada said they're very nice, they have a good heart. I said, everybody has a good heart, but everybody also has a bad heart. It's not like only they have a good heart and I don't, because I say this, I don't have a good heart suddenly. You know, this is the thing, you know, we should love everybody, but except you who is saying this, you know. Love everybody except me, whatever. You know. So, this is what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's point is, that those who try to do this, as I said, liberal or love of harmony, those who are unwilling to show any duplicity and who desire to be frank and straightforward, they are considered sectarian or orthodox by these people. This is the point, you know, meaning that not that we just walk around and say, you nonsense, you should not, you know. We don't do this, of course, we are nice also. But the point is, if somebody tells us something, that we should, oh, how dares he to tell me that I'm wrong? Or nowadays, especially nowadays, you know, you cannot tell anybody anything. This is my experience. Anything. Somebody steps on your toe. You say, you're stepping on my toe. Oh, you're offending me? I said, no, you stepped on my toe. You know. I'm just telling, can you please move? I'm not even angry about it. Can you just move that I can walk properly? Oh, you're offending. And then he goes and tell everybody, this is a horrible person here. You know, most horrible person. This is like really my experience. Sorry to say, but my experience. But you know, we should basically be open if some person of authority or some person of some kind of statue tells us something. Maybe this is wrong, or otherwise, how can we learn anything? You know? In the material world, it's called you scratch my back, I scratch your back. And we scratch our backs and you're a wonderful devotee. No, you're a wonderful devotee. Oh. Then we touch our feet, he touched my feet, and it's great, you know. And our Krishna consciousness, both of our Krishna consciousness is going to hell, and the temple is not developed, and nobody joins, and you know. And then, but main thing that we are nice, you know. So meaning that not, you know, again, to actually preach Krishna consciousness, we have to first of all be honest to ourselves. And then, at times, if our position is like this, we can be also honest to other people. As simple as that. And we should take it. You know, somebody tells us something, we should take it. Oh. We should not make a big deal. Oh, he told me or she told me this. I saw this many, many times the last couple of years, you know. Somebody tells you something. Oh, you know, big deal, you know. Or some small thing, you know. Or you put sugar in this. Oh, it's like something, you know. Before, when we joined in our times, not so long ago, but there was a little bit too much on the other side, you know, too much of a cutting. You do little, immediately 3 people on you. And you're like, oh my God, you feel like, you know, sorry, you know. And then like yelling, you know, and this and that. You bhaktas, you are not, and you're like, sorry. You think like, I killed somebody because you forgot to lock the door, or you forgot to, you know, you lost the key or something. It's like a deadly sin, you know. So that was also too much, you know, too much. There was not too much kindness and not so much love. But it should be love and kindness, but also education. If there's no education, there's no point of the Hare Krishna movement. It will become just another religion. You know, we go do some rituals and drink a little coffee on the Sunday feast, and how's it going? And okay, nice to meet you, and then go home. As we see in many churches nowadays, it's like this. Sunday they meet, drink coffee, or eat a little bit sandwiches in the back of the church. Kids are playing, running around, and the priest gives a sermon, 20 minutes. It is scientifically actually researched that no longer 20-25 minutes for the older congregation. The lecture should not be, because after 20 minutes nobody's listening anymore. So 20-25 minutes, speak a little bit about how Krishna is so beautiful, and they say, oh, this is nice. Which is wonderful. I'm not saying it's not wonderful to hear about Krishna 20 minutes. But the point is, as far as the movement, and as far as the preaching, and as far as the mood of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, and desire of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world, to actually expand the movement, Prithivite Achayati Nagaradi Grama, then we have to be a little more aggressively graceful, as they say here. We should say, no, this is Maya actually, this is wrong. Smoking cigarette is wrong. It's nice, you try your best, but this is wrong. You cannot say it's right, it's not right. We should not be attached. There's also a famous story of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. He was giving lecture, Prabhupada said this story. Bhaktisiddhanta was giving lecture, and he would give lecture 3 or 4 hours sometimes. Imagine. And he would speak from all this Sanskrit, heavy Sanskrit, 4 hours, and you were like, oh my God, who could listen to 4 hours of Sanskrit? Bhaktisiddhanta would speak, and Prabhupada would sit he would sit at that particular lecture, he was sitting next to one older man, and this man was a big donor of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. He would give 100 rupees a month. This was a big money at that time. 100 rupees a month. And Bhaktisiddhanta was giving lecture, and then this man could not understand the word what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said. So he moved towards Prabhupada and he said, what did he say? I did not understand. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati saw he's moving and he said, Naren Babu, you think you can buy me with your 100 rupees a month? And Naren was like frozen, no matter, everything is good, Meaning Bhaktisiddhanta wants to say, because you're giving donation doesn't mean that you can now speak during my class. Of course, this is a little bit too heavy, but as an example, he was not attached, he was, and everybody knew this. So we should also not be attached. If somebody gives me donation, doesn't mean that I cannot tell this to this person ever anything. Because then if you say something, this person will not give you donations anymore. So what? Don't give me donation. This is a sadhu. Sadhu is not attached. Lord Chaitanya possesses 6 opulences like Bhagavan. One of them is Tyaga, renunciation, supremely renounced. When Lord Chaitanya was leaving Puri, Gadadhar Pandit could not bear separation. He said, I'll break my Kshetra sannyas. I'll come with you. And he says, no, I order you to stay here. And Gadadhar had to follow the order of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he fainted. And Lord Chaitanya just walked. He didn't even turn back. He didn't care. And Gadadhar was laying unconscious on the ground, and Lord Chaitanya just walked away. So you would think like, oh, he's so cruel. No, that he is possesses 6 opulence, supreme renunciation. So we should be not like this, of course, to tell people, kick people left and forth, as it was again in some years ago. But we should not be attached. We actually should not be attached. We should preach Krishna consciousness, and if people take it, take it. If people don't take it, Hare Krishna, I did my best. Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, I did my best. Nobody joins. I'm not a good preacher. What can I do? Anyways, we can learn so much from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki jai. Fasting to midday. Would you like to say anything? You can Russisch and you can translate. Oh, she can translate. Oh.
У меня были мысли, что есть вот эта разница гармонии и попустительства. То есть иногда слово гармония подразумевает попустительство. Я говорю, что есть разница между гармонией в жизни, то есть хорошие взаимоотношения, правильные взаимоотношения, все, субординация не нарушена, вот, и попустительство. То есть иногда люди попустительство называют гармонией.
So sometimes there you see some difference between harmony and
I don't know what's popustitelstvo.
connivence.
What?
Convenience.
Sieht manchmal Unterschiede
Convenience.
zwischen Harmonie und manchmal ist es aber auch Dinge, die man einfach durchgehen lässt.
Ja, klar.
Zwischen denen gibt es einen Unterschied.
Ja, klar.
И потому что гармония требует всегда аскез, определенных усилий.
Harmonie erfordert gewisse Askesen, Kraftaufwand.
Усилия,
Echte Harmonie.
чтобы были хорошие взаимоотношения.
Genau, yes.
Damit es gute Beziehungen sind.
И это не, далеко не из-за привязанности, а из-за каких-то, ну, это я так понимаю просто.
Das hat bei weitem nichts mit Anhaftung oder Ähnlichem zu tun.
Это создание нужной атмосферы для служения Кришне.
Yes, when everything is when the both parties are Krishna conscious. In this case, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati meant those who are not those who are using this for material sense gratification. So he was against that particular point. But otherwise, it's yes, I agree. If you have a both, it's like husband and wife. If they have the same goal, if they're Krishna in the center, somehow they can manage their life together. It's a harmony.
Yeah.
But if one partner said, "I want to eat meat, I want to smoke," and the other said, let's be harmonious. It's kind of different. Yeah, nice point. Yes, thank you. Noch was? Möchtest du? You want to say something?
Да, я хотела, не могу понять разницу между Майапуром и Навадвипом.
I cannot understand the difference between Mayapur and Navadvip. What's the difference between Mayapur and Navadvip?
There is no Mayapur. This is the. It's like, what is the difference between Brajamandala, between Vrindavan, whatever, Govardhan, or this? It's actually Mathura. What's the difference between Mathura, Brajamandala, and Vrindavan? There's actually no difference. I was actually listening yesterday to Shivaran Swami lecture on this point, and he says exactly like this. He said, Mathura also means Vrindavan, like we have a Mathura Mahatmya by Rupa Goswami. This is actually also mean Vrindavan, does not mean only city of Mathura. But also does not mean only Mathura city and Vrindavan city, but mean also Mathura like Brajamandala. So it's like terminology. So it's the same thing. Navadvip, Mayapur, we have this Kola Dvip or whatever. Kola Dvip is also in Navadvip city. Because I was actually reading something the other day about this, and the map, it's the Navadvip was actually where Lord Chaitanya lives. This was also called Navadvip in Lord Chaitanya's times. So it's like, it's all together. Navadvip Mayapur Dham, basically. It's just there's a Navadvip city, and now we have a Mayapur because we know it's Mayapur, but it's no difference. It's a one thing. It's just one piece of the spiritual world. In ISKCON we call it Mayapur, but they call it Navadvip Dham or whatever. It's just a terminology. This is what's written. This is what Maharaj also said about this. Because when you said Krishna and Vrindavan, we think about Vrindavan spiritual. Wait a minute. Vrindavan is one village, but then we have a Mathura. What is Mathura? This is also Vrindavan. It's just a word, usage of the word. And Brajamandal is also Vrindavan. Koshi, for example, this is the beginning of Vrindavan. Koshi is the north towards Delhi. This is also Vrindavan, or this is also Mathura Mandala, or Brajamandal. Is this satisfying? Thank you. Anybody else has amazing insights of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati? We have 3 more hours until no eating today. We can only eat. We can eat tulsi leaf, just or maybe Rishi Kumar will bring rice and we will have to eat like this. I don't know. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki jai.